A very good afternoon to you, and thank you so much for finding time to join us this afternoon. This is Diaspora Dispatches, where we bring the news making headlines across the continent of Africa and also look at topical issues and issues that are trending in terms of news and importance. And of course, there's a story that we have been following here, and that is in regards to Uganda's election. We know Ugandans went to elect their president and members of parliament in January 14th, and the election ended up with the leader of opposition, Robert Kyagulanyi, taking a petition to the Supreme Court there in Uganda, challenging President Museveni's win. And just a couple of days ago, he decided otherwise. And Ugandan politician Robert Kyagulanyi, popularly known as Bobi Wine, has instructed his lawyers to withdraw the presidential poll petition he filed at the Supreme Court, challenging President Yoweri Museveni's victory in the January 14th general election. And that forms our subject of discussion this afternoon. And joining me on the panel is Douglas Kirimi, all the way from Meru. That is the central part for the viewers who are watching and are not familiar with Kenya. That is the central part of Kenya there. Douglas, a very good afternoon to you.
A very good afternoon to you, Miriam Ogutu, to our crew at our headquarters, and also to our listeners in Uganda, and also to our listeners across the world. Viewers, sorry.
To our viewers across the world. First of all, when you heard that Robert Kyagulanyi had withdrawn his petition challenging President Museveni's win, what was your first reaction?
I was not surprised, and I didn't expect Kyagulanyi to leave the house arrest that he was subjected to for over 60 days by General Museveni, the dictator in power in Uganda. But at the end of the day, he went ahead and filed this petition that was ill-fated, and it was meant to fail from the beginning. I think Bobi Wine was under pressure to file that petition, but he knew the petition itself, Museveni underachieved his mission, and also the Supreme Court was also biased in the way they wanted Bobi Wine to file that petition, read so that Bobi Wine will get unfavorable court decision or court verdict concerning the same. I think, from my perspective, Bobi Wine should not have filed that petition. What today he calls the court of public opinion, where he is subjecting his petition against the unrest that we saw in the elections, the killings by the soldiers, and also the stealing of election by General Museveni of NRM. We need to see that he should have subjected it immediately when there was the euphoria about the elections. That is when he should have said, now, I want to subject this to public opinion. I don't believe in the Supreme Court. And remember, Miriam, this is the same Supreme Court that I have said myself as a person of goodwill from the world. I don't believe in the Supreme Court in Uganda. I don't believe that Bobi Wine and the ANAP party were going to get justice from the Supreme Court of Uganda. He should have done that before, Miriam, not now. But it is not even late now, because now the ruling that would have been made is not going to be made against the NAP and also Bobi Wine himself as a presidential candidate, Miriam.
All right, very well. So now the move to withdraw this petition came a day after President Museveni, the Electoral Commission, and the Attorney General filed their 185 affidavits in response to the 53 grounds that the National Unity Platform legal team had raised to prove that the election was rigged and wasn't free and fair. And remember, Bobi Wine had filed to be allowed to bring more affidavits, and he was refused. But the National Party, that is NRM, President Museveni, the Electoral Commission, and Attorney General were allowed to file these affidavits after Bobi Wine was denied the opportunity to do so.
Miriam, this is the kind of biasness that we are talking about. This is the kind of biasness that we continue condemning as people of goodwill from the world. People in Uganda will never, and they will never subscribe to what General Museveni has been able to do in Uganda. He has been able to trample on justice, and also the people themselves, the judges themselves. The court process has been abused by General Museveni and his lawyers, and even the court officers themselves have abused the court process that is supposed to safeguard the rights of every person in Uganda, especially Bobi Wine as a presidential candidate. He was supposed to have filed his replying affidavit or his prayers in court. But we have seen today a very biased judiciary, a very biased contender, General Museveni, who has been able to usurp the power of judiciary and also continue stifling the voice of Bobi Wine and also the opposition or alternative voices that are against that of General Museveni and his people, and also the very biased judiciary in Uganda. This is very uncalled for, and I wish to condemn it in the strongest terms possible. Because at the end of the day, Miriam, if two people are in a competition and they come before you as a Supreme Court or as judges of the Supreme Court, you need to be able to give them an opportunity to be able to present their prayers before the court without any bias, without any kind of discrimination. Because Bobi Wine and his party NAP have been discriminated, and also General Museveni and his people have been favored by the same court. This clearly shows that where this petition was going, Bobi Wine was going to receive a very resounding defeat at the Supreme Court. And what Bobi Wine has done to withdraw that and release it to the court of public opinion is the best thing he has done. But what I think he should have done before, when there was the euphoria of the announcement of elections, that is when he would have now released a statement, maybe from under house arrest, and say, I have released my petition. My petition is on the court of public opinion, because at this point now, it is even the people have started moving on from this election. Bobi Wine is fighting a losing battle. At the Supreme Court, they have shown him that he is fighting a losing battle. Maybe he can take it elsewhere, maybe International Criminal Court, but for Supreme Court in Uganda, it is as biased as they can, Miriam.
All right, and I hear you, but when you're suggesting that perhaps you should have filed that petition as soon as possible after the voting there. But remember, after he voted that Thursday and he returned to his house was barricaded by police and the Ugandan army there. So there's no way he was going to do that. And then remember, internet was cut off. The government, shut down the internet, shut down social media, and also his lawyers are not allowed to access him. So there were challenges there that made it impossible for him to file as soon as perhaps he would have wanted.
Thank you, Miriam. And also, the lawyers and also the party would have filed this petition post Bobi Wine, but they could not do that because the party and the quotas were also vandalized, and also crucial documents to this petition were taken by General Museveni and his army, and also these people continued receiving intimidation. They couldn't access their political command center. They could not access their party and the quotas where crucial documents were put so that they can be able to mount a very well meaning and a very sound petition against the win of General Museveni and his NRM party. But at the end of the day, at this point, whoever is telling Bobi Wine, he should have filed this as soon as possible. Which as soon as possible? We never knew that General Museveni is going to let go Bobi Wine. We never knew the card that General Museveni is holding. Some people thought Bobi Wine is going to be held in prison. Some thought that Bobi Wine will be killed by General Museveni to continue staying in power, because at this point there is nothing that dictator in power in Uganda cannot do. So we need to separate facts and fiction. Fiction is asking Bobi Wine, saying that Bobi Wine would have now filed this petition before it was too late. But Bobi Wine was in under house arrest. His party headquarters had vandalized. His lawyers were intimidated, and everyone was not even in the mood of that. I think it is also a miracle that Bobi Wine went ahead and also said that he's going to file a petition. But this is a petition that was doomed to fail. If Bobi Wine had to do any extra judicial action, would have taken any extra judicial action beyond the court in Uganda, he would have done that, but not filing the petition earlier because he was under house arrest, the party had vandalized, the lawyers were intimidated, and nobody would have now gathered the courage to do that. They would have done that post Bobi Wine's defeat at the presidential election. But at this point, nobody should be telling Bobi Wine what he would have done and what he would not have done. He has done what is best for himself and their party. They have now thrown the ball to the court of public opinion. All
odds seems to have been against Bobi Wine from the get-go, and I think we were having that conversation here and we knew that he would go and file challenging President Museveni's win, but also we knew that there's no way he would have had any different opinion coming from the court, judging from the previous rulings, because this is not the first time that President Museveni's win has been challenged in the court. Of course, this was his 6th election, and out of that, a couple of them have been challenged before, including the one before, the one they did in January in 2016 by another presidential candidate. And of course, the results, we saw what happened there. And after that, the Supreme Court gave some recommendations that were supposed to be implemented and to be considered before Uganda went to this year's election. And of course, President Museveni, in his style and form, really did not care about the electoral reforms that the Supreme Court of Uganda had directed to be implemented there in 2016. So now, President Museveni, the Electoral Commission, and the Attorney General, who were the respondents in this case, had asked the court, the Supreme Court, challenging Museveni's victory, asked the judges to dismiss the application of introducing new affidavit there by Kyagulanyi. And Mr. Kyagulanyi, through his lawyers led by Mr. Medad Sigona, this happened about a couple of weeks ago, asked the court to amend the petition to allow more evidence on grounds that after the presidential elections on January 14th, he, Mr. Kyagulanyi, was placed under house arrest, which subjected him to post-election detention trauma that hindered him from putting together all the evidence he had for his petition in the stipulated time. So this is just one of the key things that Bobi Wine's lawyer wanted, that the court could accommodate, consider the factors around this petition and see if they would accommodate more time for him to present some evidence they had. And you would think this is because we all saw what happened there in Uganda. So you would think we have some people with who went to school and actually studied the law, and you can consider the factors surrounding a specific case and see how best you can give a ruling there. However, Mr. Museveni's lawyers then, led by our lawyer Albert Biencha, that's how you read it in Uganda. They read it a bit different. KYA us read it differently, and them they read it as Cha. So I'm really struggling. I have told the panel of 9 justices led by Chief Justice Alphonse Owinyindolo that the power to amend Mr. Kyagulanyi's petition in this short time frame doesn't arise because the rules of the Supreme Court have also provided for specific times within which to file and hear such petition. So you see the lawyer of Bobi Wine, whatever case that he was making, that was something that was straightforward. This guy voted. After he voted, he was put under house arrest against the constitution of Uganda with no reason at all. And then he was cut off from even getting in touch with his lawyer. All the evidence perhaps they had been gathering throughout the campaign and even on the election day were vandalized when the government went and vandalized the opposition parties' headquarters offices there. So, I mean, this is just something that you would think they would consider, Douglas.
Miriam, every petitioner in every court of law across the world has a right for them to be heard in a court. Either their prayers will be granted or not be granted. But the most logical sense that these Supreme Court judges led by Owinyindolo would have done justice to the prayers that were asked by Bobi Wine's lawyers is that it is the most logical, sensible thing to do. They would have listened and also allowed for some time. But we have seen the same Supreme Court that is led by Ndoro is the same Supreme Court that has allowed General Museveni and his people and the Electoral Commission in Uganda to continue and go ahead and also raise over 185 affidavits against the wishes of the same court. So it is Museveni one coin and the same it is the same side of one coin that is Museveni, the Supreme Court in Uganda, the Electoral Commission in Uganda. And Miriam, you and I have been vindicated. We said that nothing shall get into the Supreme Court of Uganda and grant anything positive to Bobi Wine. The only thing Bobi Wine would waste is their resources as a party, which are mega. They have no money, and they would waste their time in court and also waste Bobi Wine's time in court. But at the end of the day, Miriam, We have seen what we have been treated to as a court, to the court process. But at the end of the day, the people in Uganda have now seen what their Supreme Court has been able to do to Bobi Wine and his people, and also what the Supreme Court in Uganda can do to the ordinary Ugandans when you have no blessings from General Museveni himself. So this all chariot that was election in Uganda, the culmination of the same is that the Supreme Court, when the power of the Supreme Court to do it, to make even sensible prayers come to fruition, has been usurped by General Museveni himself. And this is at the point when Bobi Wine is drawing this case or petition to the Court of Public Opinion. I'm taking it further and also asking the ICC to intervene so that they can take this thing over, because so many people lost their lives in Uganda, and the people everywhere in Uganda, in Masaka people are crying, in Bare people are crying, in Kampala city, in Entebbe, everywhere they are crying against the injustices that have been permitted by the government of General Museveni. But this, at this point, what we need to do as a people in Uganda, and also people of goodwill across the world, is to hold General Museveni, the Electoral Commission, and the Supreme Court of Uganda to account. And the only way to hold them to account is to make sure that this thing is escalated to the to International Criminal Court, and take every documentation that shows that these electoral ballots were pre-marked, and also people lost their lives, and also power, military power and the police force was used to usurp the power of the people of Uganda, stifle the voices, alternative voices, and different perspectives from growing in this election, and also having their voices under the ballot, Miriam.
All right, and while I've been advising his lawyers to withdraw this petition, I just quote one of his, Mr. Bobi Wine. This is what he said: "We are withdrawing from the court, but we are not opting for violence. We are withdrawing the case from Mr. Owen Dolo's court." Wine, who has accused some judges of the court of being biased, said as he announced the withdrawal of his petition. And we know that he had a particular problem with the Chief Justice, Alphonse Owen Dolo, who was, heading this team of judges at the Supreme Court to hear this petition, because at one point this person was a personal lawyer to President Museveni. So obviously there's a conflict of interest. And then in the same bench, there was another judge that also was President Museveni's lawyer in the previous life, and also another judge that has connections with President Museveni. Obviously, a conflict of interest here was quite evident. And why? And so Bobi Wine was demanding that they recuse themselves, and they refused.
Thank you, Miriam. And the most logical sense that would have applied is when, including in Kenya and the US, when a judge has a conflict of interest in a case and a petitioner or the other party goes to the court and prays to the court that we pray that you remove Douglas Bundi Kiremi from this judge or this bench, the only sensible thing they would have done is to remove themselves from the bench and also recommend another person, or the bench can sit resume. Because at the end of the day, there is no way Bobi Wine would have trusted that he would have received justice in the court where he is sitting with personal lawyers to General Museveni or people that have direct connections with him. That is how justice systems across the world works, and that is the rule of law. At the end of the day, the rule of law cannot be the rule of law when there is so much conflict of interest that it infringes on the rights of Bobi Wine for fair representation and also a fair hearing at the Supreme Court of Uganda. But one thing we need to be very clear with when Bobi Wine speaks about these things are what is happening across Africa and some other jurisdictions. It is not only in Uganda. When a judge has a clear conflict of interest, they don't want to remove themselves from a petition, but they want to continue sitting there so that they can continue stifling a fair hearing and also a fair judgment, and also these people receiving justice that appear before these Supreme Courts and also other courts. It is a wake-up call for the people of Uganda so that they can now in future put pressure on government and also their judicial officers when there is conflict of interest in a case, for me to have a fair hearing before a court of law, for me to have a fair representation before any judge or any bench, I need to have clear to have a clear path and also have trust in the bench or the judges that are going to preside over my case. In this case, Bobi Wine was never and is never going to receive justice in the Supreme Court of Uganda, and until Alphonse Andoro is removed from the bench and also is also removed from this case, because this is a complete case of conflict of interest. Bobi Wine has no faith, including myself. I have no trust. I have no iota of doubt in my heart that Bobi Wine is not is going to receive any justice in the Supreme Court of Uganda. I have retro faith in Supreme Court of Uganda. Arbitration between Bobi Wine and General Museveni should be escalated to the highest court, the International Criminal Court. It cannot happen where the best friend to Museveni and his personal lawyer, who shares a lot of interest with General Museveni, is the man sitting on the bench to represent Bobi Wine. This is not going to happen, Miriam. So for the people of Uganda, like I have said before, I have no faith in your Supreme Court, and it is not going to grant the people that are crying in Bale, in Ruero, in Masaka, in Kampala, in Entebbe, everywhere. It is not going to serve even the people of Uganda that trusted Bobi Wine to be their leader justice, and it is not going to give them a fair hearing and a fair representation under that bench, the way it is constituted. I have retro faith in it.
All right, and I'm sure a lot of people, especially Ugandans, have no faith in that. And of course, it appears to be just a formality to sanitize this win by President Museveni that is highly disputed. We saw the events that followed the election day there in Uganda. If you believe that there was nothing to hide, President Museveni, why was the internet switched off? Why was the social media shut down? Why did the lights go off after people had voted and the ballots had to be counted in the middle of the darkness there in Uganda? A lot of things do not make so much sense, and it's quite interesting there how all this have panned out. And I think we talked about it, and we all agreed that really justice coming from the Supreme Court there in Uganda was something that was far-fetched. It was never to be. And now we see the Chief Justice himself was a personal lawyer who represented President Museveni in his other petition. And after that, I think he was rewarded by given the position of the Chief Justice. And you expect him to judge fairly about another petition, involving his former client there. What kind of sense is that? Please, even the life of me, even in the most society that acts in impunity, surely no shame, conflict of interest there, even for us journalists. There's a story. If it involves somebody I know, a friend of mine, somebody close to me, or, that I am involved, I'm not allowed by our ethics, of journalism. I cannot allow to carry out that story or to talk about that story if I have interest there on that story, because it's called conflict of interest. You will not be objective in your work. And now we see that is exactly 3 judges already allied to have connections to President Yoweri Museveni, and of course the rest. After he agreed for Parliament to remove the cap that had put an age limit on the judges there, like the one we have here in Kenya. A Chief Justice cannot serve after he attains the age of 70 years, right? That is what our constitution says. And Uganda, they had that. And in 2019, while President Museveni was preparing for what happened this year, he made sure that Parliament removed that. So he rewarded them. So obviously there's no way they were going to vote against him. Like all odds were just against Bobi Wine from the get-go. Douglas.
So Miriam, I think at the end of the day, we need to sympathize with the people of Uganda. I asked a question the other day on a local radio station where people were telling us now this building bridges initiative that is being spearheaded in Kenya is about giving some people positions. Then I asked them, what if these people decide to go and become citizens in America and they decide they don't want to do anything with Kenya? Are you going to be left with an egg on the face? We should not, the people of Uganda should not allow dictator Museveni to continue taking Ugandans for a ride, because General Museveni will go. The judges that are doing a very unconstitutional and very unjudicial, I'll call it in quote, a very unjudicial decisions, because they were rewarded by General Museveni to continue stifling voices of dissent and also alternative perspectives to that of General Museveni and his administration in Uganda, are doing it all wrong. A country is greater than ambitions of General Museveni or the protection of jobs of Alphonse Owin Ndoro, and also the people that continue sitting in those benches in Supreme Court of Uganda and other courts in Uganda. They need to know that the people of Uganda are supreme. The voices of the people of Uganda are supreme. And a day is coming when Justice Ndoro himself is going to be on the hot seat. And at the end of the day, the decisions that he has been taking for and behalf of General Museveni, who is 76-year-old, are not going to hold water and also help him. So a time is coming when the people of Uganda are going to stand up for their country. But what I can say now is that the people of Uganda, the indomitable spirit of the people of Uganda is going to fight back. And at the end of the day, what we are experiencing today is very, 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 very desperate of General Museveni to continue destroying every sector of Ugandan society and making it his own personal property. These judges who sit at this bench are at the beck and call of President Museveni, and everyone in the judicial system is at the beck and call of President Museveni. They need to be an independent judiciary for them to dispense justice to the people of Uganda, give them a fair representation, and give them a fair hearing before them when they appear before the bench, and also for the people of Uganda to have trust in their own in their own institutions. For example, the army in Uganda is known to be a crack unit for General Museveni to continue killing the public and the masses. The police force in Uganda is also the same too, for General Museveni to continue aiding himself and also entrenching his power across Uganda. But the people in Uganda should have trust in their institutions, in their police and also their army, so that the country can move forward. But to this end, Uganda cannot move forward so long as the dictator, a shameless man, very old grandfather, is in power, General Museveni, the president of Uganda. As long as he continues staying in power, the cries in Mbare are not going to cease. The cries in Masaka are not going to cease. The cries in Ruwero are not going to cease. The cries in Karamajong are not going to cease. I'm not saying General Museveni has not done anything for the people of Uganda. He has helped their people. He has helped their country. But at this point, he has reached the age of diminishing returns as far as Uganda issues are concerned. And I'm asking the young people in Uganda to stand up for their country, and protect democracy. And the only way to protect democracy is to make sure they have built capacity for their own country, so that they can continue defending this democracy from being assaulted by the dictator in power today, aided by corrupt judges like Justice Alphonse Ndoro and others who continue aiding him, the military commanders who continue aiding this dictator in power, because General Museveni surely is not fooling himself. A 76-year-old is aided by people. They are aiders of a dictator in power in every country that is experiencing dictatorship like the people of Uganda are experiencing. When you go everywhere in Uganda, people are crying. People are crying even on social media. They are crying over a student mandate from Bobi Wine. But what are they going to do when they file a petition? Doro, a best friend and a personal lawyer of General Museveni, is sitting there waiting for them. When they make noise in the streets, generals and commanders who are very close to General Museveni are waiting for them to kill them with bullets. The police are waiting for them to send them to prison. What sort of a country is this? In 21st century, the people of Uganda need to unshackle themselves from this dictator, so that Uganda can go forward, so Uganda can be able to reclaim a position in the Committee of Nations. When nations sit on the table, Uganda can be able to raise our voice, can be able to speak and defend our people and defend their borders. Thank you, Miriam.
Very well, thank you so much. And I see our viewers are engaging with us. Continue writing your comments. I'll go through some of them. And I see Pascal here, you're saying the mistake has been with Bobi Wine and the withdrawal of his petition. So what I get from that comment is you're not very happy that Bobi Wine has withdrawn that petition. I don't know from where you stand. Perhaps I know because you sound like you're in Uganda and maybe you understand the situation better. And from everything notwithstanding, what would you have hoped that Bobi Wine would have done in this situation? And do you think that he would have received a free and fair hearing there at the Supreme Court of Uganda? And you're also saying that by him withdrawing this petition, it will cost him and his party to pay billions of Ugandan shillings in the Ugandan court. And let me just respond to your last part of your comment there, because on Sunday, lawyers of the ruling National Resistance Movement said Wine will face heavy financial implications if he withdraws the petition. That sounds like, is it not intimidation there? There's a word for it. Okay, but Mr. Oscar Kihika, director of the NRM Legal Department, told journalists at the weekend that the party will ask Wine to pay all the expenses the party incurred in responding to the petition. These are lawyers who are representing Museveni. So, of course, if, the way he's withdrawn the case so early, their per diem will go down. I think they're just concerned about their wages here. So they're saying he will be forced to pay the expense the party incurred responding to the petition. The Daily Monitor revealed that Wine was mulling withdrawing or carrying on with the petition. That was over the weekend, but now we know he has withdrawn. Chief Justice Alphonse Owiny-Dollo and two justices of the Supreme Court last week refused to recuse themselves from hearing the petition as Wine had requested. In a telephone interview, Mr. Anthony Wameli, one of Wine's lawyer, revealed that his client will be willing and ready to cover the said cost. So Wine is saying, you know what, if it's the money that is worrying you, that is not a problem. The Daily Monitor revealed that Wine, of course, wanted to withdraw. So this is what Anthony Wameli said. That is a given, that once a matter is withdrawn, their cost one is expected to pay. I don't think my client has a problem paying. That is the lawyer to Mr. Bobi Wine. My client is aware of it. Mr. Joel Senyonyi, the NUP spokesperson, said we are not worried about the cost because ultimately we have been paying the price ever since we decided to challenge President Museveni. Look at how many lives we have lost. What is more expensive than life? So he's saying don't talk to us about money because we have already people who have been abducted by the government who we can't even account for. Their families now who live in fear, and we've seen cases of abductions there, a worrying trend there in Uganda, and so many lives have been lost from what the reports we've been getting there from Uganda. So don't talk to us about money. What is more important than human life? But we saw how President Museveni responded after the army and the police killed Ugandans in November, and he said, you know what, and if they keep coming, we shall kill them. So the value of life there, and how the two presidential candidates looks at life there, Ugandans' lives there in Uganda. What can you say to that?
Thank you, Miriam. And also people should understand that there is no amount of money that Bobi Wine and their party cannot pay, but human sacrifices, nobody is ready to continue paying sacrifices for a woodman to continue staying in power, Miriam. Because at the end of the day, in 2 days, 54 Ugandans. That is the number that we know. I think some others died from the same injuries in hospitals and all that. In November 18th and also 19th, 54 people died in a span of 2 days, Miriam. And also, as these people died, they died because they wanted a better Uganda. They wanted a greater Uganda. They wanted a Uganda without dictatorship. They wanted a Uganda without censorship. They wanted a fair Uganda where I can stand for president and people give me a mandate and execute that mandate for and behalf of the people of Uganda for a period of about 5 years. But what happened to these people? These souls died, and these people will never recover again. There are people who were electrocuted in this election. Their brains are never going to be the same again. There are people who have become cripples. They will never walk again. They will continue using wheelchairs. What is more important? Is it that the lives of people continue dying? Is it calling for mass action so that the people of Uganda will continue dying, or just waking up and contributing and also making sure and we have paid that debt? I'm asking Bobi Wine and also his party to do a crowdfunding for that. We will contribute and pay off Owin Doro and General Museveni so that they can continue feeding their families with that money. Because what else tells me that money will not be used by General Museveni and Justice Ndoro. Alphonse Ndoro should be ashamed of himself for aiding a dictator in power and continuing imposing FT fees on General on a NAP presidential candidate Bobi Wine. Because at this day and time, Robert Kyagulanyi has done nothing wrong for him to be able to be slapped with all these costs. But these costs are nothing compared to the lives of Ugandans, people that have lost their loved ones. General Museveni has been killing people since 1991 when he went to the bush. He has been pouring blood of innocent Ugandans for him to continue staying in power. This is a shameless man who continues killing with reckless abandon. And the people in Uganda are talking about the cost. I read about the registrar of a Supreme Court in Uganda was talking about how Bobi Wine should go ahead and also meet the cost and all that. That is something that I cannot say on TV, but I have a very bad word for that. He should be ashamed of himself and also the utterances that they are doing today, because there are so many people who have lost their lives in the course of liberation of Uganda. As people liberate Uganda, every step of liberation in Uganda costs more lives, more brand of people is spilled for dictator General Kaguta Museveni to continue staying in power. But for the people in go and pay the money in the Supreme Court, save the lives of Ugandans. God is going to stand for the people of Uganda. The people of Uganda are going to stand up against this kind of dictatorship one day. And General Museveni cannot write to us that rural people, city people have me, the Ugandans. No, Ugandans are tired with this dictatorship. Some uses coercion and intimidation so that he can continue staying in power, Miriam. And at this point, I need to answer whoever is talking about the cost. There is no cost that is not humanly possible to be paid. But you cannot be able to recreate the lives of people that General Museveni has shot or killed using the army or the police in Uganda. There is no amount of money that people cannot be able to pay off courts. Actually, if they cannot be able to pay, they can serve prison time. But at the end of the day, these people who have died in Uganda, no one is going to resurrect them. But the dictator in power in Uganda will continue staying in power when we have people who continue thinking in terms of paying the court process, which are very fraud actually. There is no justice, there is nothing that Bobi has received there except fighting Supreme Court in Uganda. As they continue doing that, the people in Uganda are going to stand for their rights, and Uganda are going to stand up for what is right versus what is wrong with the administration of General Museveni, Miriam.
Thank you so much. That is Douglas Kirimi from Meru. Like I said there, if you're watching and you don't know where that is, it is in the central part of Kenya. Thank you so much, Douglas. I'll let you go enjoy your lunch. Thank you so much for joining me this afternoon. And thank you so much, our viewers. So as Bobi Wine has withdrawn from this petition, he has not really said what he's going to do. So that is something that we shall be following. And as soon as we get more information, I'll be back here to, bring us the latest there. And it's quite interesting there. What the lawyer of Mr. Bobi Wine has said, there's no prize bigger. So that is not a problem because lives have been lost there in Uganda. And he's saying, what is more expensive than life there? Placing a premium in human beings there, something that we've seen the government not really doing so much there in Uganda. Thank you so much for watching, and in case there's something else there happening that you need to bring into our attention, feel free, just put it in there, comment on the comment section, and then we shall be talking about it the next time we meet. Thank you so much for watching. Samandra Frank, Sidonio Givandas, thank you so much, from Mozambique, if I'm not very wrong, and Proscovia Nielsen. These are the persons, Rule Iforo, and the rest of you, Lynn Nuts, somebody. All right, the rest of you who have taken their time this afternoon to watch us, enjoy the rest of your day. We shall be back here at 3 p.m. East African time with another show. Bye-bye for now.
must be our goal and our guide. And all that we strive for as a human family, dignity and hope, progress and prosperity, depends on peace. But peace depends on us.